In this session, two conversations we will have. Noted writers from Bangladesh, Kaisar Haq ji, in conversation with Sanjida Hussain ji, and the next one is Dr. Ashraf Joel in conversation with Farooq Samanji. I heartily welcome all the noted writers here in this session and Ajit Ma as well for being with us on screen. And request the first pair of writers, Kaisar Haq Sahab and Sanjida Hussain, to kindly begin their conversation.
Okay, so it's been an honor, and I'm immensely delighted to be here today to have this conversation with my most favorite teacher and mentor and guide. And let me just introduce our poet Kaisar Haq briefly. He is a Bangladeshi poet writing in English, with his essential Bangladeshiness and his Western know-how and Eastern wisdom. He is a citizen of the world, proclaimed by both the worlds. And from his essay, The Story of Indo-Anglian Poetry, he speaks about the life of Madhusudhan Dutt, of Michael Madhusudhan Dutt, who is a very famous poet of Bangladesh. He attempted to write in English at the initial period of his poetic career, but later on he failed and he adopted Bangla as a medium of writing, and he produced immortal verses in Bangla. And when Kaisar Haq, when he speaks about his poetic career, how it started, we find discouragements everywhere. His father, he said that you're chasing alien gods because you're writing in English, being a Bangladeshi. And he has studied in the Department of English, University of Dhaka, where he served as a professor for a long time. And there he received dismissive remarks as well. So my first question to him is, why have you chosen to travel on this little traveled road? Why have you adopted English as a medium of writing poems?
Well, I mean, as we have mentioned, I mean, the subcontinent does have a tradition of writing in English. Madhusudhan switched from English to Bangla, and in fact, he also argued that it was pointless to try to write in English, but then others continued. So after Madhusudhan, there were a number of them who wrote both in English and French. And I mean, as you can see, I mean, by now in the subcontinent as a whole, and particularly in India, the English writing scene is very vibrant. And in fact, the biggest bestsellers in India now are books written in English by Indians, like Chetan Bhagat, a very popular writer. He's not considered a writer of great literary merit, but I mean, he's popular. He writes film scripts and also novels and essays. So this has become a part of the Indian literary scene. In Bangladesh, because of our language movement, the emphasis has been on writing in Bangla. And I mean, unfortunately, anyone writing in English is seen as a bit of a cultural traitor. But this is actually very unfortunate and rather silly, because, I mean, without any doubt, I mean, most of the 99% of the writings in Bangladesh are going to be in Bangla. The overwhelming bulk of writings will be in Bangla. If someone writes in English, it's a matter of individual choice. And now, why and how a person chooses his or her literary language is a very strange process. So I went to English medium schools, and then English became my literary language. Now, sometimes nowadays, this phenomenon of translingualism, somebody moving from one language to another, it goes
Kaisar sir, please unmute yourself.
Yes. You see, nowadays, because of transnationalism, that is, there are lots of people who are migrants who are moving from one country to another, and not just becoming a part of the diaspora in one country. So you have people moving from one country to a second country and then a third or perhaps a fourth country. Think of Jhumpa Lahiri, Calcutta, London, America, and then she has now started writing in Italian. Or think of Salman Rushdie, Bombay, then his family is in Pakistan, then England, and now he's an American citizen. So this sort of thing, this phenomenon is on the rise, and you have writers who are writing not only in a second language, but sometimes in a third language. So, and it's not, I mean, one should just see what they have written and judge the writing on its own merits instead of making it a sort of subject of ideological controversy. Okay. I hope that answers it. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, that does. So my next question is, in your poem Weekend, you spoke about a gardener. The speaker is a gardener who is producing a plum gourd. And to a certain extent, it seems like, you know, you resemble or you associate yourself with that gardener in some way or the other. I felt that. So to you, which profession is closer, the closest to poetry writing, to a poet? And does poets, they write poems for glory, for being praised? Like, if I'm going to ask you, what are your motivations? Why do you strive to write poems?
Well, I think poets write because they feel an urge to express themselves in poetic moods. At the same time, I mean, I think most poets do crave a bit of fame. So success, literary success means that one is known by others and read by others. So one wishes to have other people read one's writings and, you know, react to them positively. You know, sometimes the reaction is not positive, but one has to accept that. You know, I mean, one can't expect to charm everyone. So there are bound to be people, readers, who are critical of one's work. That's fine. You know, that's perfectly acceptable. Now, that particular poem about the man, you know, doing a bit of gardening by the roadside, you know, I mean, I think at the back of that, it's actually a poem of self-criticism. The last line is, I haven't written a single line I'd like to treat like that, the way he's treating the gourd. You know, he handles it lovingly. So, you see, in other words, when a person grows something, a vegetable, flowers, whatever, it's an organic process, and the person's relationship with the produce, whether it's I mean, or the flowers, fruit, whatever, it's a very warm and intimate relationship. Writers also want to have that kind of a relationship with their work, but writers, I think, more often than not, feel a little dissatisfied with whatever they produce, except in flashes, perhaps. Yes. Yeah. So and that's part of being a writer, I think. You know, that one should never be fully satisfied with one's work.
Yes. So you have fought in the country's liberation war. You have been a freedom fighter, and you received commission during the war, but you resigned and you came back to your studies in 1972. But you in any way is not a war poet. Like when you write about war, it doesn't seem to be you're glorifying war. You agonize over death and destruction. Then in general, what does war mean to you? Like, why did you the war?
You know, that was a specific war. I mean, that was a war of national self-definition. I mean, Bangladesh as a nation, I mean, had no standing in the geopolitical sphere, and we were subject to a prejudice and racism. So and then the horrific crackdown, of course, that was a decisive factor. I mean, one could no longer accept the order that existed before March 25th. So it was an existential choice. What do you do in such an extreme situation where you have the army on the rampage, people fleeing, running for their lives? Dhaka city emptied overnight. People just walked all the way to their villages. It was a sad sight. So what do you do in that situation? You either resist or lie low or run away. So to me, joining the resistance seemed to be the most authentic existential choice.
Okay, so coming back to Dhaka, you're a poet who's based on Dhaka, and there are beautiful descriptions of seasons in Dhaka and how you're able to experience seasons in Dhaka. For example, in poems like Unholy Sabbath, you speak about the sun, the sun, and how the hot sun, how it bakes the pillows like hot bricks, and the killing sun, it doesn't seem to have no end to like transmitting its heat but then again, when you talk about monsoon, for example, in the poem titled Rain in the Subcontinent, it seems like you look forward to monsoon, but then again, you don't find any pleasure in monsoon. Like you're not obsessed with rain, or like you're not infatuated in any way by the droplets. But like it seems like you find no pleasure in rain. Then the sun or the rain, what suits Dhaka the best?
Well, I mean, there are things you enjoy. I mean, the seasons we have, I mean, strangely enough, in a country where the differences in temperature between seasons it's a very small range. It's strange that we have 6 seasons, 2 months.
Yeah.
So these seasons, are not like the seasons in a cold country, in the temperate zone, where you have clearly sort of differentiated seasons. So it's sort of one just slides into another, and there's a subtle change, and then another change. Suddenly it's very steaming hot, and then the monsoon is over. So I think I think Bengalis enjoy this, Bangladeshis enjoy this cycle. And I have responded to it because I grew up in Dhaka city when it was a small town. In one lecture, I've said that in 1950, there were 335,000 people in Dhaka, and one of them was a newborn me. And now we have 21 million people. We have exceeded Calcutta. Bangladesh is more populous than Russia. It's a very different situation. And Dhaka city does not allow us to respond to the seasons in the same way. But when I was growing up, our area was half village and half town. You could reach the town center on foot in 15-20 minutes, the city center. And yet we also had rice fields, and people fishing, canals, and all that. So semi-rural aspect was there too. So we could relate to all the seasons. Nowadays, living in flats, children do not have that experience, unfortunately.
Yes, we never did that. I was born and brought up in Dhaka.
You have to go out of the city and spend some time in the countryside to experience the seasons.
So my last question is on the women in your poem. There's a poem called Parda, very short poem, and I found it a little disturbing. The woman in the poem, she's covered all over, and her eyes are just exposed, cold, damp, dilate eyes, and she's drinking beer. So unfortunately, I have never seen any positive portrayal of women in your poems. There are no strong, assertive women. And what are women to you? Like these women, does she resemble all the all the women in your poems?
No,
A mysterious creature, you know, in a futile attempt, she's trying to hide everything deep down inside of her, but unable to hide her sensuality. Like, what are women to you?
well,
Do
I
you
think,
believe
I
this
think, I mean,
or sensual?
in a patriarchal society, women are forced to hide a lot of things. I think, so it is, I think, a sad fact that women cannot express themselves as freely as men can, or adopt a persona that they would like to. There are a lot of social restrictions. So I just took a sort of comic sort of view of a particular, of just one little aspect of it. So yeah, well, the speakers, except for one or two points, I think the speakers are all male. I mean,
Yes.
because my poems are personal in that sense. So it's something I cannot help. So I mean, if you were to write poems, your persona would be present there, and it's unavoidable. So your experiences as a Bangladeshi, as a woman, as an academic, as a mother, all these things. It's not possible to be absolutely even-handed and give a fully rounded view in personal approach. But I hope I have not sort of written anything that is chauvinistic, or even if it is perhaps maybe one of the things which are framed in a sort of satiric manner. So it's not that I am saying that. It's part of the poem, perhaps if we had a certain satiric touch.
So thank you.
Thank you very much for the
थैंक यू कैसर साहब, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया संजीदा जी, बहुत ही अच्छी बातचीत रही, वेरी नाइस टॉकिंग, थैंक यू. नाउ आई रिक्वेस्ट टू अशरफ जोयल जी एंड जनाब फारूक सुमन जी टू काइंडली start this conversation.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good noon to all. Welcome to the South Asian Online Literature Conference, jointly organized by Sahitya Academy and Foundation of SARC, Writers and Literature, FOSWAL. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to respected President of Foundation of SARC, Writers and Literature, FOSWAL, Dr. Ajit Kaur Madam. You know, this conference is being organized from 27th to 29th March, and this is the 16th session. Respected all, now I would like to introduce myself. This is Farooq Sumun from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I am used to write poems and essays. So far, I have published 4 books of poetry, 4 essays, and a travel book. At present time, I am engaged in teaching at Bir Sreshta Munshi Abdul Public College, BGB, Pilkhana, Dhaka. Well, today I am feeling privileged to have such an amazing interview and conversational session with one of the well-known poet and story writer of Bangladesh, Mr. Ashraf Joel. Dear all, now we will talk to Mr. Ashraf Joel. Let's get to know him briefly. Ashraf Joel is a new generation writer of Bangladesh. He is a poet, short story writer. Nowadays, he is writing regularly in a good number of prestigious literary magazines of countries and abroad. Mr. Ashraf Joel, hope you are good and healthy. At first, I want to know When a poet is also a story writer, what can be the effect of this story?
Thank you, Mr. Farooq Shuman, and very good afternoon to all in this session, including Ajit Kaur ma'am and Professor Kaisar. I was just mesmerizing, I just heard about his interview. And before I just start my talk, I would like to tribute to the, we have just observed the Independence Day of Bangladesh. It was 26th of March. So I would like to express my tribute and respect to all of the freedom fighter. And Professor Kaiser is also freedom fighter. So I would just like to take the opportunity to tribute him and their sacrifice to become Bangladesh now where. So again, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Ajit Kaur Mamji and Sahitya Academy because they are jointly organizing this kind of conference around the years, especially in the era of COVID. So it's a very good opportunity for us to express our feelings to each other and to know each other. So thank you. So your question was actually how a poet, and a story writer, so make their literature difference. So when poem is something, what is the expression of a man, so what he observe or what he see around him. So I think it's a very I like a short-term memory that yeah, I can just think about a poem, something, anything can influence me. But in story writing, I have to make the plots, I have to make the characters. So I have to observe all the times surrounding me. So as a writer, though it's a very different, arena of literature, like poem and story or novel. So I just separate myself as a, when I just used to write poem, then I am a poet, and when I used to write short story, then definitely I'm a short story writer or novelist. So that was my question, answer. Sorry.
Thank you. Ashraf Joel, we know one of your story books is called রাষ্ট্রধারণার বিরুদ্ধে মামলা ও বিবিধ গল্প, cases and stories against the concept of the state, where contemporary reality has manifested itself. Is there any special reason behind writing such a factual book?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, I used to write poem, and before this book, so story book, I have had three, books of poetry collection actually. But there is a reason why I have just started to write, short story. There is a very bad incident in my life. My mother was, attacked by, in 2016 there was a political, crisis in our country, and the bomb, petrol bomb was killed a lot of people. Unfortunately, my mother was one of them who just attacked with this incident, and she, her face was burned and her body part, entire body part was burned. So that time I just thought, okay, I can express my feelings, I can express my sorrow, I can express my, what happened with us. So better to write, story. And from that time, actually, I just used to write short story, and that is why I just called my name of my book like রাষ্ট্রধারণার বিরুদ্ধে মামলা ও বিবিধ. And I have asked from different kind of institutions why I have written this book, like it's against the country. So my answer was I love my desh, what we call desh, but it's country or rastro. It's kind of institution, and I even in Bangladesh, third world country, I never found, but very barely found that this concept of country, helps their population or their unit like us. So that was, I think, one of the reason behind the writing of this story. And all of the story actually were about the what we cannot say in our language. Just I express these thoughts in my short story.
Thank you. Recently, you have published a story book called Pakhirosh. excellent name. As we have seen, the book has become quite popular among the readers. What are your success assessment? What are your assessments and comments about this book?
Thank you,
Akilesh.
Mr. Farooq Suman. Yeah, it is my second short story collection, actually, Pakhirosh, what we can, Bird's Anger. So it has been considered with 10 short story. And again, I have just written of what I am thinking that, yeah, in all over the country, this story are actually like, it's the crisis of what we are facing all over the world, actually. So what I'm trying to express that this kind of problem, we are facing every day, every moment to life in such kind of problems. So I just express my feelings about this, and fortunately, the readers have accepted this short story books very well. In book fair, it was a book of discussion among the writers and the critics. So yeah, that gives me a very good feeling that okay, I'm doing a good thing what I tried to.
Yes. Now I want to talk in a different context. Foundation of Shark Writers and Literature Festival has been organized or organizing such literary conference for a long time. What is your assessment of this event in the development of art literature among the SAARC countries?
It is phenomenal. The Ajit ma'am, what she is doing for last, I think, almost 40 years as a writer, she has concentrated on her writing as well to accumulate all of the literary people. Literature can change a lot of a society. Literature is the mirror of a society. So people can express their emotions, people can express their thoughts, what they cannot talk in words. Ajit Kaur ma'am and Foswal is doing excellent job. I have been the part of this program since I think 5 or 6 years, and every time I become mesmerized, I become surprised to see the spirit of that woman. Actually, hats off to her. And at the age, she is around 90 years of age. But I always feel encouraged to see her spirit, to see her, to make it actually, because we are the South Asian. Actually, we were the same country, and the border have divided us. But when I went there in Delhi or in Jaipur, every time I feel that okay, we are from the same family, so we can express our emotions, not only poetry or not only novel, but we can express our emotions, and we can know each other. And with this program, actually, I had a lot of friends in South Asian countries, like including Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So it's I think he's doing a great job to accumulate the poems, the writers all over the South Asian country, and actually this is uh, I just express my heartfelt gratitude to her to do this kind of thing around the years actually for the last, I think it's almost 40 years.
Yes. As a writer, what is your opinion about contemporary poetry, Bengali poetry, and stories?
Thank you, Farshon. I was just hearing from Professor Kaiser, as a poet, actually, he is well known as a translator and critic, but I found him a very good poet. But unfortunately, he stopped, his work is like translation and critic, but he's a good poet of Bangladesh. And again, yeah, I am very much hopeful with the contemporary poetry and short story of Bangladesh. A lot more poets, a lot more young poets and young novelists. They are doing excellent job. If we, just found back in the book fair 2022, a good number of novels, have been published, and good number of, you know, poems book is like that's been published. And I know that we have also had two publications in this book fair. So again, as as interviewer, I'm asking you that what was your feelings like, in the book fair of 2002 that you have published two of your books?
Thank you so much. Actually, uh, 8 long poems have been included in the book Biramchinner Kanna, where the willing of the individual at the time of crisis has been resonated. As punctuation sees the misinterpretation of meaning, similarly, some enlightened people in our society try their best to save the society from various chaos. Biramchinner Kanna is basically a symbolic representation of those enlightened people. And a total of 14 articles on art and literature have been included in the book Shilpar Sargam. This is article. Attempts have been made to discuss in this book about what is art, why, when, and how art flourishes. Besides the power of art, the miraculous joy of art, along with its philosophical and useful characteristics, have been portrayed in the book with artistic feelings.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know, is there any time or not? If time allowed, then I would like to conclude this session with poems of Kaisar Haq. The name of the poem is Ode on the Lungi. It's a very long poem, but I would like to recite few lines from this. I don't know Professor Kaisar is here or not, but again, he is my favorite poet. So Ode on the Lungis. Lungi. Grandpa, Walt, allow me to share my thoughts with you, if only because every time I read Passage to India and come across the phrase Passage to more than India, I fancy anachronistically that you wanted to overshoot the target by a shadow line and land in Bangladesh. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about sartorial equity, how far we are from this democratic ideal, and how hypocritical all clothes have equal rights, which nobody will deny, and yet some obviously and more equal than others. No, I'm not complaining about the jacket and the tie required in certain places that like fancy dresses parties in the spirit of a game. So that was a few lines from Professor Kaiser's poem, Ode on the Lungi.
Wow, great points. Fascinating.
So Mr. Farooq, I think you can conclude this session.
So thank you, all of you. This session concludes here. Now the next session begins. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Adab.